Hello, beautiful people. Welcome.
Hello, hello. We have the first people coming in.
Hey, hi
Hi.
guys.
Hello.
Hi. So sorry, I'm
Hi.
having a state to put my video on, but lovely to be here.
Don't
Hello, guys.
worry. Hello, welcome.
It's so nice to see some familiar faces. I'm kind of clicking through to see everyone, but I see a lot of people have already understood the assignment that we're doing while we wait for everyone to find the link and join. So you can just click with your mouse into that graphic, because I would love to know, as a participant, like, doesn't matter what the session is, are you generally a person that is more on the left, meaning you stay quiet, or are you one of the first people to volunteer, meaning further on the right? And I'm realizing now that we can't see the scale anymore because everybody's put their pictures on there. Is that for everyone or just for me that I see everyone?
No, everyone's everywhere because this it's a crowded room, Jan.
All
Just
right.
imagine that scale going from I am so not engaged usually to my God, I'm this rock star. I always raise a hand. I always chat. I would be somewhere there.
Very good. Yes, you
The
can be
chatty
off
one.
the scale too. You can be off the scale too.
Yeah, I'm kind of in there too. You can see mine in there over pictures. It's an interesting way you pose that question too, for people who are facilitators and also sometimes participants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I just want to say hi to. I see Jean. I see Dea. I think I see Joanne. Some of those people were in a session with me yesterday too, so thanks for coming back. Hello, Rebecca. Just spotted you there. And we have a few people who it is their first time on Butter too. Very exciting. Okay, we'll have you check in if you haven't yet. If you already put your dot on the little graphic in the middle, going from left, being a quiet lurker, like you're just sitting there taking things in. Maybe you have your camera off, you don't really engage. Maybe you share something in the chat, but that's it. Versus on the right, where you're like, I'm the first one to raise my hand and like volunteer to speak. Don't even know the people who are there yet. So let me know where you are on that scale. And hello to the people hello, Kirsty from London, and Anne from Oslo. Ooh, Kendra from Toronto. Toronto is a place that I used to live for 14 years, and I'm actually going to be there in 2 weeks to facilitate a company offsite. So I'm very excited to come back. Okay, we got people from Guatemala and Indonesia. Wow, we are spread all over the globe. I love it. I am in Germany now, in case anybody's wondering. I moved to be a little bit closer to family. Right, there's the first person who said Berlin from Germany too. Nice. Hello, Björn. All right, I think we're gonna let that timer run out on the top. If you're new to Butter, you can actually see the agenda of things that we have planned. I'm not giving away all the secrets, and if you rather like to be surprised, don't even click it. But if you're curious, if this is, like I said, your first time in Butter, maybe have a look around and we'll give you a bit of a tour in like 30 seconds when we get started. Okay, more people from Canada and India and Denmark and the US and Romania. Very nice. Okay, I'm going to fade out my music and I am going to pass the mic over to Rachel.
Hi, everyone. Well, very happy to have everyone here. This is a great turnout. Just keep in mind, we have ButterMixers all the time. I know that this one is super exciting, and I can't wait for it. Like, keep a lookout for ones in the future as well. We try to have about 2 a month, I believe. And so I'm really happy to have Jan here. He's a trainer and facilitator and an experience designer. But if you meet him at a networking event, he might, and ask him what he does, he might say that he's on a small talk detox, which is actually, I love that, which is I'm sure we'll hear a lot more about that in this engagement spiral workshop. So several years ago, he actually crafted a deck of connection cards, which I actually own a copy of. Yeah, there you go. And to help his friends bond on a camping trip, actually. And you'll see his little camping fire behind him. I think that might have a little bit of connection with his cards there, if I am not mistaken. And now his connection cards are being used to turn those shallow conversations into deep connections around the globe. And we've seen a huge representation from around the globe already here. So it's led him to this path where he specializes in creating experiences that promote trust, vulnerability, and a sense of belonging. So I hope you're all ready for that today, because I think we're going to have some of that. And since 2020, he's trained thousands of people to create highly inclusive and engaging and meaningful experiences, which is close to my heart as well. I love this. I think, we've chatted before, and I think we could have chatted for hours when we talked last time. So recently he relocated from Canada, Germany. We saw that we have some other people from Germany, and it looks like you're going back to Canada for something.
Just a week.
Just a week. Yes. Okay. So you moved to Germany to be closer to family and continue building a global community of trainers, facilitators, and magical human moments with all of us. So we're so happy to have him here on the ButterMixer, and we're really happy for the interest and the turnout here, and we can't wait to get started. So I'm gonna pass it back over to him to just get us all in there and engaged.
Thank you so much, Rachel, and thank you, Butter Team, for allowing me to share a bit of this engagement spiral idea that I literally have not shared with anyone yet. Like, if you're here in this session, you're going to be the first people to hear about it, but also experience it. And we're going to focus today a lot on how to engage people virtually when we can't be in the same room. And if you remember this big life event that happened around 2020, where suddenly we couldn't be in the same room anymore, you might also have felt the same thing that I felt at that time. Most of my sessions were in person. I actually love to have people take their cell phones, put them in little sleeping bags, and like turn them off, so technology is really on the other side in your bag. It can't be a distraction from the connections that we're making, from the activities that we're doing. But when the pandemic happened, I did not know if I'm ever able to recreate the same feelings that I now call these magical human moments online. And one thing that I did at the beginning of the pandemic was I started doing all of these experiments. And one of the experiments was me realizing that there's a lot of people out there that can't have physical touch right now. Like, they can't hug anyone. And I'm a big hugger. If you're a big hugger in person, you can also type hugger in the chat or raise your hand, or actually the hug emoji that I see popping up. Very good. For the few people who already know how to use Butter, for if you don't, I'll show you in a moment. I thought, okay, I need to create some kind of event for these people to support them. And I came up on one day with this idea, okay, I want to organize a virtual group hug. And even went on, like, I was so confident that so many people need this that I went on the Guinness Book of World Records page, tried to research, okay, how can I get this into the Guinness Book of World Records? Turns out that is a really complicated process that takes a long time to prepare. And the event that I was hosting was actually 2 days later. So I still had no idea how I'm actually going to hug or make people hug. We were stuck in these like little screens, like we can't touch each other, right? So what are we going to do? And one thing I did is I invited everyone to bring an object. I told them, maybe bring stuffed animal like from your kids that you could hug. Maybe bring a pillow that you could hug, or a blanket, or any other thing. Like I see Anna Maria is showing her cat right now. Maybe you have a pet. Bring something to hug. So we met on Zoom and everybody hugged something different. This is kind of a little screenshot of a small part of that group. One person was hugging a t-shirt that meant something to them. One person was hugging a box of matzo ball soup. Like they were all hugging an object, and I played this kind of emotional soundtrack in the background from a movie and invited everyone to think of a moment that they've received a hug before the pandemic. And we kind of naturally closed our eyes, and with that music, the emotions just kind of got a lot more intense. And I remembered a moment of my son, who at that time was just under 2 years old. And in the building that we lived in Toronto, he was so terrified by the fire alarm. And the fire alarm would go off like every month. There would be like a false alarm because somebody was smoking in the stairwell or some other reason. Like it was rarely we had a real fire, but the firefighters always came and had to turn it off. So it was like 15, 20 minutes of alarm nonstop, sometimes in the middle of the night. So I remembered very clearly a week before that event, he came running towards me through the apartment because the alarm went off, and he just gave me this really strong hug, like he didn't let me go. And remembering that in that session on Zoom, I knew that, okay, I can't make the alarm go away. All I can do is actually give him a hug back and just squeeze him. And it was maybe another 20 minutes before the alarm stopped. But at that point, he just fell asleep in my arms. And it made me realize that if you don't have anyone to like hug, if you don't have anybody to hug you when you are going through something as challenging as a global pandemic, then that is really challenging. So everybody else, of course, had a similar story, similar reaction. We spent another 45 minutes to an hour just sharing how challenging it has been. And this was at the end of March in 2020, when there was just a lot of uncertainty of what's going to happen next. So with that, I realized there's a lot more possible that we can do when we're meeting again in this virtual space, because I literally forgot that I'm looking at a screen. I felt so connected to the other people that I knew, okay, I need to explore more. I need to find more ways how we can engage and do something different than just kind of sitting in front of a screen and looking at a Zoom screen or a Butter screen or whatever the screen is, whatever platform that you're using. So what I'll share with you today is a concept that hopefully gets you started on this journey. And before we go into that, I want to teach you a couple of features in Butter, because this is going to be interactive. There will be breakout rooms. We'll be partnering with people. We'll be sharing things in the chat. Like I see a lot of people have already been discovering the chat. So what we're going to do is do this little Butter tutorial with a couple of flashcards. And the first thing that I would love for you to find are the reaction buttons. If you haven't found them yet, on the left side, you should see react, and then you can choose one of these emojis that are there. I can see that is already working really well. The numbers, by the way, also correspond to your number pad. So if you're like always want to hit number 4, like the little guy with the heart eyes, that would pop up on my end. There we go. All right. I think most people have found this. Let's pause it for a second, because I have a question, and we'll use those reaction buttons to see what your answer is. So if you are a Butter regular, meaning this is nothing new to you, you already know what the emojis are, I want you to click the heart, the number 4, the emoji with the heart eyes. If this is your first time on Butter, or maybe one of the first times, hit the numbers 5, the little party with a party cone emoji. Okay. I can't tell which one is more, but there's definitely a lot of people for both. So I knew that I'm not going to get any accurate data from this, but you're welcome to use these emojis throughout the session. If there's something that resonates, if you have a reaction to something, feel free to use those throughout. Okay, the next thing that we might use is the chat, which I think most of you have found by now. So I'm not going to ask you to share something else in the chat, because I think, yeah, that's pretty self-explanatory. On the slide, by just clicking with your mouse, if you're ready to get started. So if you're ready, you click on the left. If you're not ready, you click on the right. And for the people who are not ready, I'm sure that Anna Maria or Rachel from the Butter team can help you out in the chat. Those are my good co-hosts for today. So thank you for helping out. All right, I have one more thing, because there's one more thing we can do. So these were some things we could do with the flashcards, but we can also do a poll. And in this case, I would love to know, what do you call yourself? Like in your professional title, if you had to put it in one word, what is that one word? And just type that in, and on our end, we should see a little word cloud that is coming together. I'm already seeing that facilitators are here, entrepreneurs, coaches. There's some people who use 2 words, because I think master might be master something. A master human, I'm not sure. Managers, designers, supporters, gatherers. But I think facilitator is definitely the one that has become the biggest. So if I address this group, if I address you later and I use facilitators, that's because I think that's most of you. And everybody else that is also here, please feel included when I say facilitator, because in the end, if you're leading a group, you are most likely using facilitation skills. So you're welcome to use the term facilitator as well. All right. So what I would love to do is give you an opportunity to connect with each other, but also set a bit of an intention. This experience, like I said, is going to be interactive. And I want you to actually see if you can grab a pen and paper, or if you are a facilitator, you might even have some Post-its nearby. So grab something, you can write something down. You can also use a digital tool, like write it on your phone or maybe on your computer. But for this, if you have something physical, like a pen and paper, that's great. And the question I would love for you to think about is, where is it? This one. How do you want others to feel as a result of your participation today? This is a question that I literally just saw on LinkedIn today, yesterday. It made me pause when Larissa Garcia posted it, and it's originally inspired by Michael Bungay-Stanier. If you know him, you're also welcome to say hi or give a thumbs up. He wrote a great book, The Coaching Habit. And I really like this question. So I want you to actually take a minute and write something down for yourself. I'm going to use the timer in here. And when you are done writing something down, there should be a I am done button on the timer that you see at the bottom of the Butter screen. And I will, in the meantime, play a little bit of reflection music, just so there's something in the background. But you have another 30 seconds. And I hope that you have something written down, because what we're going to do next is I'm going to set up some breakout rooms. You're going to be in groups of 3. I hope that works out. You might be in a group of 2 as well. And share what is the thing that you wrote down. And then when we come back, I want to find out from you why you think I asked this question. So we'll do some breakout rooms. Again, your instructions are also visible once you get to the group. There's some tasks for you to do a little introduction, like just share your name and where you're located. But let's not get too deep into this topic or into doing your introduction, because to me, this is part of that small talk. We're going to get into this territory where you just start talking about yourself rather than the question, and you might get sidetracked and you run out of time. So let me just make sure that I have all of the settings here correct. Like I said, we'll do some breakout rooms. You have, I think, 6 minutes, so about 2 minutes per person. Okay, maybe click the reaction button one more time to show me that you're ready to go to the breakout room. All right, amazing. Oh, I see Joanna has a comment. Is that about the activity? Just making sure that that's clear. I think the hand went back down. So I will see you when you come back from the breakout room, and then I'll hear back from you. Okay, have fun. Oh, hold on, I need to, it says to check main butter tab. Actually, Rachel, could you start the breakout rooms from your end?
Let me.
Okay, I can see people are coming back from their rooms. You can wave if you can hear music. Very good. Music is going through the speakers. Very good. Rachel, you let me know if everybody is here.
They should be here in about 10 more seconds.
All
Everyone's
right.
coming back.
And I think I hear somebody's cooking something that probably is going to be really delicious. So if you are unmuted, make sure you mute yourself. Thank you. All right. I think, is that everyone?
It should be. It should be.
Okay. Well, first of all, quick check-in with the reaction buttons. How was your session? Did you meet somebody interesting? Okay, lots of thumbs up, hearts and hugs and fires. Amazing. Like I said, I just found this question yesterday and I was like, I think this might be a perfect fit for this session. Does anybody want to put a thought into the chat why you think I asked you this? How do you want others to feel as a result of your participation today? Ooh, I like what Rachel is saying. Where attention goes, energy flows. A way to guide engagement. What you give is what you get. We all have an impact on each other. We are emotional beings. I'm trying to read everything, but the chat is going really fast. We are responsible for what we create. Right. I actually think that engagement is not something that I, as the facilitator, can like force a group to do. Like I can inspire you, I can try to bring it out, but in the end, it's the individuals that will also increase the engagement for each other. If you've ever been in a session where you asked a question and literally nobody wanted to speak, this is what I usually call one of these moments where you just get crickets and tumbleweeds. It's really hard to get it started. But I actually think that some groups, especially if we don't structure the session enough, it might be with just a few people talking and most others sitting back and listening. So that's what I was thinking about when I was creating this workshop, when I was creating this engagement spiral workshop. And I tried to come up with a concept that is very easy for you to implement, but rather than me telling you what it is, I want you to experience it. So I'll actually take you through the whole process, and at the end, we kind of reveal the curtain and we look at how the sausage was made. That's a weird saying, but basically we're going to do it first, and then we're going to take it apart and show how it's done. And just to give you a heads up or a glimpse of how many different spirals I built in my presentation in the last few weeks, just to figure out what's the easiest way to show this. And again, you're the first people to see this, so I'm going to be looking for some feedback. I did commit to writing a book, and I feel like this part of creating more inclusion, creating more engagement, creating more meaningful experiences is definitely a big part of it. So this type of concept can be applied to any meeting or workshop or training where we want to make sure that everyone's included and everyone gets to participate and engage. Could you go to the chat and actually tell me what kind of meetings would benefit the most, where everybody's included and everybody's engaged, everybody's participating? What type of meetings would benefit the most? All hands meetings, project meetings, especially mandated meetings, governance and collective decision making, values and vision. And then I just see all meetings, any meetings, every kind of meeting, which is true. But if you've ever been in a session that is starting with somebody saying, hey, can we just like talk without any special format and kind of just flow where the conversation goes, there's a huge problem that I was not aware of until recently. And I think sometimes it's tempting to just go without any structure at all. But when we do this unstructured meeting, it's actually a big problem. I would love for us to brainstorm a bit of what actually happens when we have these unstructured meetings. Like if you put yourself in the situation of maybe you were in one, again, let's use the chat. What happens if we don't have any structure? Chaos, fear, uncertainty, anxiety. It goes on forever. I think that's a really good point. I think it often becomes a waste of time. I also like what Rachel was saying, silence or chaos. Like it could go either way. Frustration, not everybody gets their thoughts heard, their opinions heard. Lots of talking without a lot of communication. You don't get the outcome we'd planned for. Challenging for diversity to be included. There would be only one or two people talking. Exactly. Like to me, an unstructured meeting, unless it's like nobody's engaging at all, would probably look like this, where we have maybe one or two people who are doing all of the talking. They're the loudest. And most often, those are also the people who are male in an authority, in a group with privilege. And then everybody else is just there on a spectrum, maybe paying attention, but most likely also tuning out. Like if this is a session that happens more than once, people just don't participate at all. And there's two big fears that I have for these unstructured meetings. And one of them is it's just small talk. I actually hear this from a lot of people who work in organizations, that sometimes they just start the meeting with doing small talk. But what usually happens is those two people do all the small talk while everybody else is there like, okay, when are we actually going to get started? And it feels like a waste of time at the end. So they might not even show up on time anymore. And the other thing that happens, because we have this kind of bias of thinking, okay, if we don't have structure, everybody gets to participate, everybody gets to share equally, which is actually not true. There are studies that show that women talk longer in meetings than men and make more formal contributions. Men also interrupt more often, even if the conversation partner is in a position of power. So I read this in an article, and basically without structure, here, the text should show up in a second. Without structure, meetings tend to perpetuate patterns of oppression. And to me, this meant, okay, we need to find some structure, at least something that is easy for people to do, that gets everyone talking, but it's not, okay, everybody unmute and share. Because to me, that's the other extreme, which sometimes makes me feel like, oh, I see everyone sharing, and as they get closer to me, the faster my heart starts beating, and the more nervous I get. And then when it's my turn, I fumble my words, and I don't participate really as well. And there's another thing, which is there's two different types of people. Maybe there's more, but there's at least those two that I would love for us to categorize yourself. Are you a person that needs to think before they speak? Like, you need the moment to kind of gather your thoughts, and when you have an answer, then you kind of raise your hand if you think of yourself in school. Or are you a person that likes to speak to think, meaning you raise your hand, but you don't have an answer yet, and as you are verbalizing your thoughts, the answer will be found somewhere in there. So let me know by clicking 1 or 2 in these options, because I'm curious who's attending here today. And I see there's 26 people who think to speak and 10 people who speak to think. Well, that's more than double. So if I did this at the beginning today and just asked, okay, whoever wants to share, unmute, those by now almost 30 people would go like, I'm not ready yet. So what we're going to do in these next few parts of the session today is actually take you through this engagement spiral idea, where we'll get also the people who need to think before they speak heard and participating. And for this, we are going to start with another bit of a quiet reflection. For this, you can either put some notes on paper again, if you feel more comfortable with paper, or you could use the feature in Butter where you can add private notes. So I'll just share this little slide. On the left-hand menu bar, you should see a notes just under the chat with a little pen. And on there, you can share shared notes, or you can write shared notes, and you can write private notes. So if you want to write notes that are just for yourself, please click the private tab. If you click or write anything in the shared, everybody in this meeting will see it. So I think it might be interesting to see what's happening in shared notes. But for this next question, I would love for you to take notes. Either you can do it in Butter, on paper, or on any other note-taking app. And the question I want you to think about is this one. What are we missing out on if we run more of these unstructured meetings? Because I think there's a lot that will never be part of a conversation. If you're brainstorming, if you want to make decisions, there's a lot that we're missing. So I want you to take a couple of notes. I'll actually give you 3 minutes. So write down as many ideas as possible as you can think of what we are missing out on if we run unstructured meetings like I described earlier. And I'll put up a timer again and some music for you. Okay, you have 1 more minute. Okay, our time is up. Thanks for writing down some notes, because what we're going to do now is we're going to set up some breakout rooms again. And I just want you to take a moment with a partner to share some of the things that you've written down. Like, choose what you want to share and see if you can find something that you can both agree on. Okay, so come up with some things that we're missing out on that both of you in the breakout room agree on. You're going to be in pairs. You have 5 minutes for this. So just have a little conversation. And then when you come back, we'll share some of your takeaways in the chat. And Rachel, if you could launch that breakout room, that would be amazing.
Oh, you got me wide awake when you keep living in my mind. Heartbeat, heartbeat, stop that beat again. I need you night and day.
Okay, you're welcome to react with some emojis on how your conversations went until we get everyone here. I love this so much in Butter. There's so much way you can send energy to the facilitator. If you lead groups and you sometimes feel like you're giving a lot, like this is really cool to see. Okay, I'm gonna check and see how we're doing. There's still some people missing. All right.
We're back.
We have made it back. All right. Now that you had some chance to verbalize some of the things that you were sharing, maybe what you wrote down in the beginning has shifted a little bit, or maybe you found some new ideas. So what we're going to do next is collect as much of the information still on the same question in the chat. So the question still is, what are we missing out on if we run unstructured meetings? And I want you to go to the chat and just type as many things as possible in the chat. I will, again, put on a little timer, and I see some people are prepared and have already copied them from their notes. And if you have added something to the chat already, I encourage you to scroll back up, read through some of the other things that people have said, and in Butter, you can react to people's messages. So if you see something that resonates, maybe give it a thumbs up or a heart or another emoji. Oh, I see some handwritten notes from Sabina coming in. Very nice. Okay, I'm going to read through some of those. Again, you're welcome to react if you see something that resonates. I'll play our music for a little bit longer while you finish typing.
I'm loving the feeling of dopamine in my bloodstream. Let it control me. I'm loving the feeling. Start that beat again.
Okay, I'm reading lots of great things in the chat. So if you have submitted already, make sure you scroll back up and just read through some of the other things that were shared. And I'll zoom, or I'll fade out our music just so there's not that much distraction for this part. Okay, we are moving to our next part, is time to hear from a few people and have them unmute and share in front of the whole group. And for this part, no, I forgot to add the little instructions. There is another cool feature in Butter. If you click on the left-hand menu on the Q button, you can, like Anna Maria has just demonstrated, say that you have a comment, a question, or an idea. And that will kind of put us in a little bit of an order. So if you do want to share something, any takeaways from your conversations, from reading things in the chat, you can do that. You can comment on anything that you've discussed from taking notes, conversations, or the chat. And I might even go in and look at what has gotten a lot of reactions in the chat and maybe call on you to elaborate a little bit. Actually, Evelyn, you shared something in the chat that I think got a lot of thumbs up. If you're willing to unmute and share a bit more on more diverse viewpoints and this leaving with a satisfied feeling part that you mentioned.
Yes, for sure. Just checking whether I was the only Evelyn, because there's so many people in here. Let me just scroll back to my own. Yes. I was together with Daniel, and we were talking about, well, of course, the more diverse viewpoints. I saw it coming up in other people's comments as well. And then the leaving with a satisfied feeling is more that you feel like you were able to engage, but also other people could, or you heard other people, and that it feels like a good experience. And it was the same. Daniel came up with closure, like you feel like you achieved something. There was a goal, you got there, and you leave feeling satisfied. And then the last one is the time to do other things, not necessarily to be more efficient, but if you have to run fewer meetings, then you have more time to do things that maybe you enjoy more, even though the meetings that you have, you will enjoy more as well.
Yeah, I think that the time is a big one, like the time that you save to either do more work or do more things that are not work, whatever is important to each person, right?
Yes, for sure.
Nice. Thank you for sharing. Let's see if anybody else is willing to click the Q button and share something, some takeaways from your one-on-one conversations or from reading the chat. If not, I will go through the chat. There's a few things that have received a lot of engagement. I would actually love to hear Danielle, if you're willing to share.
Sorry, that pop-up happened exactly as I was clicking in that spot. I gave someone the mic.
Oh, okay.
So, is
who was raising
their
their hand?
I don't know.
I missed it. I was probably just looking at the chat. So if you just raised your hand, just click the button again so we find you again.
Yeah, I handed you the mic, but I think you dropped it.
Okay, maybe in the meantime, Danielle, if you are here, you wrote psychological safety, and that got 7 people's thumbs up, which I highly agree. Psychological safety is definitely something that gets lost. Would you like to share a bit more on that?
Yeah, I think that if people don't have a feeling where you can feel like they can just share their views and like have this ability to participate, they don't have psychological safety. Like they won't feel comfortable giving their opinion. They're not going to be comfortable, feeling like they belong in the session, and that could then impact the way they think about psychological safety in the more general term, like if it's in a company. So if they can't share their opinions, it means they can't their opinions not valued, and they might not be as engaged or as motivated to to think about themselves, as an expert in their field, and that's just a huge impact on every aspect for this.
Yeah, I think on one hand, if psychological safety is not present, then they will never feel like they can raise their hand and contribute. But also, if there's no structure to invite them in, then they're also not going to do it, and they can't build that psychological safety and trust. Like, to me, that's a process that just takes time and needs to be built slowly. Like, it doesn't exist from like when you have new people join a team or a meeting.
Yeah, and I think also like this is what other people as well. So if you have new people or more junior people, and that's what they're saying, that other voices aren't being heard, like it also impacts their own feeling of if they have psychological safety or not. It spreads.
Yeah, thank you, Danielle. I did see that somebody did raise their hand, but it's Rachel. Did you see who it was?
Yes, it says the startup shaman. So
Right.
I'll hand them the mic.
Hey, my name is Justin Joseph.
Hi, Justin.
And I wanted to say that I think the idea of the spiral kind of gives a sense of a kind of continuous creative process, and something about the nature of a spiral is that it's really simple, but the structure itself kind of gives you something to go on or go with. So I guess what I was kind of feeling into was like watching you facilitate the space, Jan, and watching you do so in connection with Rachel and Anna Marie, but also the whole group. It kind of created this sense that everyone, whether they wanted to speak or not, had a different way or place or form to kind of share and be on their own learning journey, but do it together. And the way that people can kind of take away or carry forward all the different things that are coming about here feels like it's like the foundations of something that is applicable and open in a way that kind of inspires something continuous to happen. Like I can keep going back and looking at structure or meeting or reflection or a lot of things that have been brought here, good music as background, as important parts of what it looks like to hold a good space or to bring structure into a meeting that's very unique and distinct, I think. Some appreciation and some reflection there.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I hope that of people here are also picking up some of the things that I won't actually name as I'm kind of explaining or unraveling the spiral coming up, because there's a lot of things we can do to engage participants, but we only have a kind of short time today to kind of focus on one aspect of it. So thanks for pointing some of those things out, like the music to me is a big part. Nice. All right. Is there one more person who would like to share something? Going through the chat again. Oh, I see we have somebody requesting the mic.
Over to you.
I was shy, but decided this whole thing is about speaking up, right? We were chatting with Benoit on attention and focus, because when we have structure, it just gives us some time to think about how we want to engage and how we want to participate in a meeting or in an event. So I think without structure, we might be missing on the focus of the attendees or the attention of the attendees.
Yeah, I think even just setting an intention at the beginning, which was in a way the question that I asked you was in a way asking you to set an intention for like what energy are you going to bring to this? And I think it makes a big impact. Yeah, thank you. Okay, I saw one more hand up, and then I think we'll continue.
It looks like they put it down.
Okay.
So I don't have it up anymore. But if you want to pop in again, put your hand back up.
It was Ranjini.
And all good. I will continue. I will take back the mic and share a bit, kind of revealing what we just did. Because what I asked you in this session so far is mostly take off your facilitator hat and be a participant. Because I believe some of the best ways to learn something is to experience something, rather than me just showing a slide with like, here's the step 1, 2, 3, 4. You probably will not take as much away from it as going through it. So I'm going to share with you now the spiral graphic that I worked so hard on. And I'll take you through the steps of what we did, explain a bit of the thinking behind it. And then after that, would love to know how you might apply this to your own session, to your own workshops, meetings, trainings, etc. So, and this is kind of where we want to get to. This is our goal at the top of the spiral, a participant who has the mic, who feels they have the confidence to speak up. Like this is when we just talked about psychological safety before, they feel like their voice is going to be heard and they're willing to share something, even if it's not perfect. Like that's the goal, to get more people there. And it starts at the very bottom with, I know, a little explosion, which is the emoji way of saying a prompt. Maybe it's a question that you ask. For us today, it was all about the question of what are we missing out on when we do unstructured meetings? That was the starting point. Does anybody remember what I asked you to do first after I asked you that question? Maybe share in chat. See who remembers. I see some people are typing. Take your own notes first. Quiet reflection, right? I first need to animate the spiral. But the first part was reflect. By the way, cheat code, go back to the agenda. You will see what we did because I actually named it that way. But the first thing was actually giving you some quiet time to reflect, because to me, that's the person who needs to think before they speak. If we go straight to a breakout room, if we go straight to asking people to unmute and like raise their hand, they will not have time to process and come up with any good idea or any idea at all. So to me, this is really important as one of the first steps. And I'll actually go through those in more detail afterwards. The second part was connect. So I had you in breakout rooms share with one other person, and that just is a lot easier than speaking in front of a whole group. I used to be a person that had a bit of stage fright when I was a teenager, like that moment where everybody gets a turn to share, and I see it's coming closer to me, getting that nervous feeling, almost like your throat closing in. That was definitely me. I got more comfortable with that as I got older, also pushing myself into those situations. But sharing it with just one person, no problem at all. In front of the whole group, different story. So that's why we build in the second step of a smaller group. Could also maybe be a group of 3. But then the third part in group, so reflection was just one person by themselves. Connect was maybe 2 or 3 people. Collect, this is where I asked you to share everything in the chat. Because if you are not a person that will ever unmute and share in front of a large group, I still want to hear your thoughts. I still want to hear your ideas. So we need to collect them somewhere. And the chat is one place. We could also do this on a whiteboard. If you're in person, people could write it on sticky notes and put it on a wall, like wherever you're going to collect the information. And depending on what you're doing, you might be able to do other things with that information that is collected there. You could cluster it in different themes. You could prioritize it. Like if you have everything visible somewhere, you kind of set yourself up for whatever's coming next. And then, of course, at the top, we have the person grabbing the mic. Now I'm asking for people to share. And you might have noticed me kind of use one trick to avoid the crickets. Like now that everybody has shared in the chat, and you have also reacted to each other's messages in the chat, I could go and see, okay, who has said something meaningful, and invite them to elaborate a little bit. That's kind of one secret that I like to use, especially when I ask a question and I get crickets. I might in that moment go and say like, okay, seems like we need more time to kind of find an answer. Let's just take a minute to kind of write down your answer by yourself. Maybe I would then still do the breakout room, or I would ask everyone to share something in the chat. And then once they share it in the chat, I will ask them to unmute. So with that spiral idea, we don't always need to go through like all the steps, but sometimes when you're not getting the engagement, you have everyone participate and engage. So that's in a nutshell the idea of the engagement spiral. And because I forgot, Jason, who was on the mic earlier, was also picking up on some other things, I have this little poll that I would like to start, because I assume there's other things that you might have picked up on the things that we've done that also increased your engagement in the session today, or maybe you've noticed it increased engagement for others. So I'll give you a moment to share what are some other things that you've just picked up from the way I facilitated this. And I am reading music as one thing. The spectrum at the start, right? When you came in, I asked you to kind of put yourself on the spectrum from I'm usually a quiet lurker to I am the first one to volunteer and unmute and share. Polls, clear tasks, sound effects, teaching you how to use the tools, right? Because I know that a lot of you are new to Butter. I'm still not a Butter expert. I use it for one session in my virtual facilitator training where we talk about virtual engagement tools specifically. And we approach it in a way of, hey, this is a really cool platform, but before we can use it, we need to make sure our participants know how to use it as well. So I always like to add that. Planning from the participant perspective, more music, asking questions. All right, so there's a lot of things. Oh, this list is really long. I will need to print this later on. Amazing. Working with a team of facilitators. Thank you, Butter team, for being my co-pilots today. Nice. Okay, I'm going to close this poll, but I'm definitely going to review some of the more things that you shared in there because I see some longer paragraphs. What I would love to do is open up the session for some questions and see if anybody has another question or something that they want to share, to get some feedback on. Maybe you have a specific session and you're like, I don't know if I could apply this, like the spiral idea that I just shared. So if you have any specific questions, we can ask those. And I think I do have a Q&A box. So if you want to type it in there first, then we can also, everybody can vote on the popular questions if there's more questions that are in there. Or you could just click the Q button and raise your hand, whichever is easier. Oh, great question. I see pop up in there from Mayan. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. What's your stand on asking to turn cameras on? So I, at one point, thought that if cameras are off, people are disengaged, which actually is a myth. Because I had some of the most engaged people have technical issues with their laptop and they couldn't turn on their camera, but they were like basically having a conversation with me in the chat. They also couldn't use their mic. So I was asking a question, they responded in the chat, and we had a conversation. It was a lot slower, but it still worked. And things like reaction buttons is another way for me to see if somebody's engaged. There are other tools that are at my disposal. So I would never require it. Also knowing that sometimes there's things that you don't want other people to see that are happening behind you. During the pandemic, I sometimes had to change diapers, and it was like the crib was right behind my desk. I had like a little coworker in my office. Nobody needs to see that, so I would turn my camera off, and requiring it to turn it on just doesn't make any sense. But having said that, there is a lot of energy that gets communicated through seeing people's facial expressions and their body language, especially when you're facilitating and you want to get a sense of the energy in the room. So what I usually say is something like, you don't have to have it on all the time, but if you want to feel more connected to each other, and especially when you go to breakout rooms, you don't want to be the one person with the camera on and everybody else with the camera off, because it just makes you feel more self-conscious. Then I invite you to turn it on. That's kind of a way to say it, but then there's some tricks. We don't have time to go into in detail, but there's some tricks I do ask people to turn on the camera, and then they don't even notice that they turned it on, and they leave it on. All right, there's a lot of questions. So if you want to vote on those, that will help me kind of prioritize, because we won't have time to get to everyone. But I can see, actually, I forgot this whole thing, that I can highlight a question. Here we go. And this is from Rachel. How do you help people engage even before the workshop? What do you do pre-workshop? Another great question, because I'll be running a couple of workshops at a company offsite that is in person in Toronto in 2 weeks. And I actually do the same thing as I would do virtually, which is I will send out a poll survey to ask people like, hey, what's your biggest challenge around the topic of the workshop? What's one thing you would want to walk away with? And are there any things you need in terms of accessibility to fully participate? That's kind of like my general 3 questions I'd like to send out. But then a couple of days before, I also send out a video message, especially if it's a group that doesn't know me yet. I want to introduce myself. I don't want to be a stranger that just shows up on the day off. And it kind of helps me sometimes more than the participants, but I definitely think it's a two-way street. For them, I'm not a stranger anymore, and that helps me build trust with them the first day that I see them, or when they show up on Zoom or on Butter or Microsoft Teams or anywhere else. Nice. Back to answers. I'll do maybe one more question. So if there's one more question that has been voted up, let me know. I think there's one more with 2 on hybrid sessions. I'll briefly touch on this, but I think I'll close this so we can see each other a little bit better. And hybrid sessions, I have my own opinion on. I actually think that hybrid sessions should not exist, because it's always going to make somebody feel not as included or not as part of the group as the other group. And sometimes it's the people in person, and sometimes it's the people who are tuning in virtually. So therefore, it's really hard to create a great hybrid experience. And if you're going to do it, and I've done it in facilitating a hybrid wedding, so not your typical meeting, but there we had a lot more freedom to actually create 3 experiences. So the in-person experience was kind of the wedding that you're used to, but we also had a separate virtual experience. And then we had this third thing, which was the overlap. I call them the hybrid moments, where the in-person participants engaged with the online participants, and we kind of made that bridge. But this was literally a third experience that we needed to design, and therefore it is kind of like 3 times the work compared to doing a really great virtual session, or making sure that you move it until everybody's available in the same room. So that's kind of my short version. If you're doing hybrid, I would ask myself, would it be better to just have everyone be in front of a laptop and have their own account where people can see every person that is there and hear every person that is there? And or if it has to be in person, can we move it until everybody's available? Those are that's my hot take on hybrid. Okay, I have something that is coming up next in the agenda. Can anybody actually look in the agenda and see what is coming up next and post it in the chat? This is your little test to see if you know how to move around Butter. Does anybody see what it says? Andrea, Destiny, an experiment, right? So we are going to do a little experiment if you are up for it. So first of all, I need to check in with all of you. So if you want to give me a thumbs up in the reaction buttons if you're up for an experiment. And for this, it would be really great if you could turn on your camera, because to fully get the experience of this experiment and the meaning that we'll kind of talk about right after, it's great if you can turn on your camera. And I need to quickly grab something. So I have that ready to go. And all of you also need to grab something, which is your finger. Can you show me one finger into the camera if you have the camera on? Perfect. I can see lots of fingers. Can you wiggle it too, so we make sure that it's working, it's alive? Awesome. By the way, if you can't participate in finger wiggles or any of the other things that I'm going to ask you to do, just do your best to your physical ability. Okay, we got our one finger. Show me the other finger too. And both of them are wiggling. Perfect. All right. I think that means we are ready to go. I'm going to press play here. So we have some music here. And I'm going to invite you, once the beat actually starts, just move your two fingers to the beat of the music, whatever that means to you. So some people might be doing windshield wipers, other people might be pointing at things, whatever it is, you do your own thing. Start loosening up the wrists as well, so we can kind of move our whole hands as well as we're moving to this music. Maybe the elbows as well, so we kind of have a little bit more flexibility with our arms. Amazing. Maybe we will smile while we're doing this if you're not yet, because this is a lot of fun. And I'm going to fade out the music before it gets awkward again, because I already made the point that I'm trying to make. So first of all, give yourselves a big round of applause for participating if you did. What does that have to do with the engagement spiral? I'm curious. Before I explain it, what does wiggling your finger to music have to do with the engagement spiral? Oh, I see a few people want to unmute. Okay, let's go to who goes first?
Romina.
Romina, okay, go ahead. Are you there? Can you hear us?
I did not mean to press anything.
Oh, okay.
Ooh, finger wiggle!
Too much energy in your finger.
I'm having internet issues, but I did like the dancing.
Okay, thank you. I think it was too much energy in your finger. Now people are just clicking everything.
It was just, random clicking.
Yeah. Anna Maria, I saw you clicked as well. Was it also by accident?
No, it was I'm the person that thinks to talk. So here I am making my contribution. Does it have to do with small movements?
I think, yeah.
Scaffolding to something, like start with something really small and then build up on that small thing. In this case, it was a finger wiggle, but it could be other things as well.
I think
Question mark?
you're spot on. It really has to do with small steps and like incrementally asking you to do something a little bit more. Because if somebody asked me, hey, we're going to have a dance party on camera, and starts playing music and gets up and starts dancing like full on, I would be a person that turns off the camera, because that's too much for me. I'm probably a lot more self-conscious dancing in front of a screen than maybe I am when I'm going out and it's with friends. But to me, that just went too deep too quickly. And to me, that's the same thing. If like the reason why I have the campfire behind me is if you've ever tried to start a fire, it's kind of like trying to light a big log with just a lighter. I guess nothing's going to happen. It's not going to catch fire. Although we want to build a big campfire, we have to start by burning our tinder, our paper, our kind of anything that ignites very easily. And then we add our little sticks and branches and our kindling on top. And we kind of build on top. And to me, that big log, that kind of dance party in this finger disco is all about the harder conversations that we need to have, maybe the vulnerable conversations we need to have. Whenever I design a workshop or design an experience, I try to figure out what is the first thing I'm going to ask people to do that is very easy, that gets as many people to say yes and engage. If that is, type a yes in the chat if you're ready to get started. If it is like what we did at the beginning, teaching you the different butter options of you just clicking a button, like it's easy to click a button. I don't have to have my camera on. I don't have to unmute. Everybody can do that. And with every thing that we do, we'll ask for a little bit more. And because we are kind of short on time to go really deep into this, like to me, this is the thing I love to talk about. This is part of everything that I do, that I share a lot about in my virtual facilitator training, in my workshops. I did create a little secret page for anybody who's here in this workshop, where I'm sharing two things with you. One is a guide that is called How to Avoid the Crickets in Your Online Meetings. So if you've ever asked that question and then nobody wants to respond, there's 3 tips in there that you can use. And one of them is actually the sending a video message ahead of time. And I'll give some tips on what I say in that video message. And the other thing is I do have one more cohort coming up of my virtual facilitator training. It's a 4-week cohort that starts in March. If you're interested in that, all you need to do is click a button that says I'm interested, and then I'll send you some more information and a special discount code, because the early bird officially expired yesterday. But for this group, because you are here with me and you're still here doing the finger disco, I feel like it's worth extending that for this little group. And thank you, Anna Maria, for putting that into the chat. Awesome. I have one last question. I actually was thinking, if we have time, I would love to do another mini spiral, which is asking you to journal, share in a breakout room, and then share out loud. But because the time is quite short, all we're going to do is ask you to share your takeaways here in this last little poll, because I still would love to know what was your main takeaway from today's session. And maybe it was about the finger wiggle, maybe it was about the spectrum we did at the beginning. Let me know. And as those things are coming in, I wanted to thank also the Butter team for inviting me to be part of this. This was a ton of fun, which I'm sure everybody gets an invite to, right? So if you wanted to continue the conversation.
It's open for everyone. It's free, so feel free to pop in there. I will pop the link in the chat for everyone.
Yes, which is another great way if you have questions or wanted to connect with each other, that might be a good place to find each other as well. All right, so many great takeaways. Building small and incremental engagement. How important engagement is. people like clicking buttons. That's a good takeaway too.
And we also have a code for if you want to try Butter out, and Anna Maria's just popped that in there in the chat. Butter Community Event Specials, the code, and you'll get 30% off for your first 2 months using that code, and hopefully you'll use more butter.
Nice. I will leave this poll up for a little bit more. Actually, I think I set a timer that it ends in like a minute. But if you do need to hop off, I'm going to invite you to, actually, can we open up the soundboard as people are leaving so they can press something? Because I think that's another cool thing in Butter.
Good to go.
So if you click the react button, you now have a couple of more options to also share some sounds as you're saying goodbye and logging off. This is what would happen if we do an unstructured.
That's why we keep it closed.
Yeah.
That's why this one stays closed. Actually.
I know. I love.
Thank you so much, Jan. This was awesome. Thank you for joining, and thank you, Rachel, for hosting. And thanks everyone for being here.
Thank you. It was great. Awesome job.
Thank
and
you.
Saeed's got his stickers up there, his swag. I love it.